Hey, good morning, class. I hope you had a nice weekend. Hope you're ready to go here. We are moving right along. We're going to continue our Renaissance discussion. We're going to stick in this era, but we're going to move on to the life and legacy of King Henry VIII. And boy, oh boy, this guy definitely changes the game, changes history, and we'll get into those reasons in just a bit. So, again, we're going to move away from the Italian and the Northern Renaissance and really kind of focus on England and focus on the actions of King Henry VIII here. Okay? All right, so let's take a look here. Again, here's the image of King Henry VIII, a rather large fellow. Again, early life, very athletic. However, as he got older, he's going to, again, uh, gain a lot of weight. He's going to be kind of robust and kind of, again, this kind of figurehead that nobody really wants to mess with. So we'll talk about his actions here to get started. Okay, so King Henry VIII wants a son. Now, let's take a look at the Catholic Church. After the clash with Martin Luther, the Catholic Church encountered another battle, and that's going to be with the King of England. That's going to be with King Henry VIII. Henry VIII became king in 1509 and was a devout Catholic. Okay, in fact, he was fiercely opposed to the actions of Martin Luther. So again, here he is, devout in his Catholic faith, and he feels that what Martin Luther does with Protestantism is sinful. It is against everything that he stands for. However, he's going to run into some trouble of his own. Okay, so for this, essentially, what the Pope gave King Henry VIII is he basically declares King Henry VIII as defender of the faith. Okay, however, politically, King Henry VIII was in a jam. He's in a pickle. He is stuck. He needs a male heir to the throne. Okay, Henry had feared that England would fall into a civil war if he could not have a son. So he and his wife, Catherine of Aragon, um, have one living child, and that was Mary. Okay, but here's the thing: at that time, no woman had ever successfully claimed the throne. So he is trying and trying to have another child, um, but things aren't going his way. Okay, now King Henry VIII feared that Catherine would not have a son at the age of 42. Remember, again, if you lived into your 40s, that's a good long life. And as Catherine of Aragon is getting older, the likelihood of her producing a male heir was not good. Okay, therefore, what does King Henry VIII want to do? Well, he wants to divorce her. Okay, now divorce was forbidden by the Catholic Church unless it was annulled. Okay, now King Henry VIII is going to ask the Pope for approval for a proper divorce, but he gets denied. And this infuriates King Henry VIII. Okay, in response, Henry VIII attempted to take matters into his own hands. He tries to do what he wants on his own. All right, he asks Parliament if a set of laws could end the Pope's power in England. Okay, so in 1533, Henry VIII would secretly marry Anne Boleyn. Okay, she had a daughter already, or they actually have a daughter together, Elizabeth I. Okay, with Parliament's approval, Henry VIII was declared the official head of England's church. So what does this mean? This is known as the Act of Supremacy. All right, so it gives King Henry the ability to essentially create and establish his own church. The Pope no longer has authority in England, and this creates a lot of chaos. And so much so that people are going to be highly critical of this action. One of those people that we talked about last time with the Northern Renaissance was Thomas More. Remember Thomas More? He creates and writes Utopia. Has this vision of a perfect world. Well, More was a very devout Catholic. He's going to criticize. He's going to look at King Henry VIII. He's going to be outspoken. Remember, we talked about the printing press. We talked about the written word as being a dangerous situation. He's going to critique and criticize King Henry VIII. And for this, Thomas More is going to be imprisoned for treason in the Tower of London. He's going to be held captive in the Tower of London. And then he's going to be executed by King Henry VIII. So he's ordered to be executed. Thomas More, again, this famous writer, is executed. Okay? Now, let's look at the consequences of King Henry's changes here. Okay? Now, Henry VIII did not get the male heir that he sought to have with Anne Boleyn. All right, she fell out of Henry's favor. Okay, so the two don't get along. Anne Boleyn very critical, and what does King Henry VIII do? She's arrested. She's also placed in the Tower of London and then beheaded. Okay, so she's also executed. Now, Henry VIII is going to have a third wife. All right, he's going to marry Jane Seymour. All right, they have a son named Edward, but she dies 2 weeks after his birth. Again, women at that time, a lot of women, women would pass away after childbirth if there was complications. So his third wife passes away, and now he moves on to a fourth wife. King Henry VIII is going to marry and divorce Anne of Cleves. Okay, that's his fourth wife. His fifth wife, King Henry VIII, is going to marry Catherine Howard. He also has issues with her. She falls out of his favor. He executes her. His sixth wife is going to be Catherine Parr. So King Henry VIII marries Catherine Parr. She outlives him. Okay, after he passes away in 1547. Again, he becomes severely overweight. He's unhealthy. He passes away in 1547. Now the throne is handed over to Edward VI. He was only 9 years old at the time. So Edward, who King Henry VIII had with Jane Seymour, is now promoted to being the king. Now, there's a really good graphic here that kind of explains the wives of King Henry VIII. All right, Catherine of Aragon, again, that was annulled. Anne Boleyn, she was executed. Jane Seymour, she died. Anne of Cleves, divorced. Catherine Howard, executed. Catherine Parr was a widow. Okay, she outlives King Henry VIII. Now, the aftermath. What does this lead to? Okay, guided by advisors, Edward VI rules in a time where several Protestants operate in England. After falling ill, he would give up the throne to his sister Mary. Mary would restore Catholicism and give the Pope his power. So all of a sudden, again, the Catholic Church regains power in England. All right, she was met with intense resistance, however, but opted to kill several Protestants out of this. So again, we have Protestants, we have Catholics. They are clashing now in England. When Mary died in 1558, Elizabeth I inherited the throne. Okay, Elizabeth I was determined to restore England to Protestantism. Okay, she's going to essentially work with Parliament. They're going to officially set up the Church of England, or what we now know as the Anglican Church. All right, so Elizabeth sets up a government that would tolerate both Catholics and Protestants. Concessions would have to be made. So again, agreements would have to be made on both sides. However, Catholics led by Mary, Queen of Scots, would challenge her throne. Okay, she would run into severe money issues, and this led to conflict between the throne and Parliament. So again, Queen Elizabeth I, out of all of this, all right, she's going to rule again for those 42 years. But again, this is kind of that backstory, and all of it stems from the wild changes that King Henry VIII is going to essentially do, simply because he could not have a divorce. All right, so again, a crazy dynamic, a crazy legacy. They've created an entire musical based on King Henry VIII's wives. Again, very, very popular musical. And what I want us to do is we're going to take a look at a journal log, and you guys are going to continue working on your Renegades of the Renaissance project. All right? Okay, folks, that's it on King Henry VIII. Take care and have a great one.